Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome to the Networking RX podcast. I'm your host, Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. Today we have another great guest. As our ongoing subscribers know, often on this podcast, it's me sharing ideas and insights for best practices for building professional relationships and excelling at business networking. Occasionally, however, I'll be interviewing subject matter experts, authors, speakers, thought leaders, and social scientists. These people will share their knowledge to help us build relationships and understand why things work the way they work. Today, I have on the program Christine Smith. She is the co-founder and managing partner of Riplefx. She's become known as the Obi-Wan Kenobi of networking and a master community builder. She's learned to leverage her networking abilities to enable other professionals to have a support system and find success through the networks that they build. Christine, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Frank, for having me.
So I guess, how'd you get into this? How did this all start? Nobody goes to high school and says, I want to be a community builder.
Yeah, it doesn't really happen that way. So I would say long story short, I've been in sales for 17 years and I have learned a lot of what not to do. Being in sales, I was in the car business, being in financial services, you get that bad, used car sale approach to a lot of the conversations that happen, especially when you're in-person networking. And the transition happened into community building when I became a financial advisor. And I started working for a firm and they're like, oh, just go out and network and get out there, build a reputation, but there was no guidance on that. It was like, okay, here we go. Good luck. Have fun with that. So I did that. I went to multiple events a day. I was that person that went to 2 or 3 a day and at night. And I started realizing, well, this isn't really helping me with my business. And I also got the other side where I was getting a lot of judgment just because of where I worked. And I was like, okay, I got into this business because I wanted to be a resource. So how do I build myself as a resource without people judging me because of my job title? Because they've had poor experiences with other advisors in this industry. So I started trying to figure out, okay, well, what can I do to get in front of people that's non-confrontational? So I started doing events that were focused. Originally, they were women empowering women events. So I started doing that to help women do other things like how to buy a car, how to, shop for a mortgage, just everything, but specific to, women. And then as I got more fluent in just having these different conversations, I started thinking about doing my own events because I just feel like I wasn't getting enough out of the events I was going to.
Yeah. And
I got involved in a very small networking group. And I eventually took over running the groups as a way for me to get in front of people in a very non-confrontational way. And combining that with running events that I was running. And I'm like, what can I do to get in front of people that's exciting, that's fun, that's different, and that doesn't necessarily correlate to my financial practice. So I was running an event called Wine and Game Speed Networking. And it's very different. It's not speed networking at all. You don't sit in front of somebody for 30 seconds and tell them your pitch and move on to the next person. It's all structured. So people would have actual games on the table. You sit with a group of 4, 5, or 6, and I give them a task for a certain amount of time. And what was very fascinating is that when people have to focus on something that's a task at hand, even with people that they don't know, they forget the fact that they're on, which is what most professionals are doing. And that's why they pitch. That's why they word vomit on you. And it was really cool to watch because real relationships started to develop. And I just really started to become that person that knew everybody. And a lot of people would ask me, well, how do you do that? How do I do that? And with the networking group I was running at the time, I'd be like, oh, well, you should join, this group that I run, and you're going to meet other really cool people and be in a really cool supportive environment. And then it just turned into just this other community that I didn't expect. It was truly a tribe of people that I could leverage for my own clients. I was like, listen, not only are you getting me, but I have this massive connection base for you also. And then I was teaching people how to do it. I was doing networking workshops. Okay, here's how to do this. And when I was teaching people how to be better at networking, what was really cool that happened then was they just became better networkers. It was better for me too, because they were verbalizing better on what they were looking for. They were listening better for what I was looking for. The quality of connections was way better. The quality of clients was way better. I'm like, oh my God, this is so awesome. Like, I don't have to prospect anymore because everyone else is doing it for me. It's fascinating. And then the opportunity arose for my partner and I to really take the networking game for ourselves. And we decided to launch Riplefx in January 2020, prior to pandemic, obviously. And everything was in person at the time. There was no discussion of ever doing anything digital.
Sure.
And we just made the transition it was very seamless. Everything still works fine, whether you're in person or digital. And here we are.
Yeah, it's. I think we all have that similar story that Zoom has opened our eyes to many things.
Yeah.
Or a new way of doing business. You were talking there, and I really kind of want to talk about the things you share with people and educate people on. I think we're all really good at building relationships. It's very human. And we find with it when we stumble into it, we're good at it, but then when you start throwing the business element into it, and I can see you as that young financial advisor saying, just go out there and network, saying, oh my God, I don't really know what I'm doing. Yeah. In reality, you do, but you kind of think you don't. And then ultimately kind of defaulting back to what you really know and just building relationships and then things working out. And I think that's somewhere along the way, the firms, and I wouldn't say it's insurance firms, financial services, CPAs, they don't network.
Not typically, no.
Yeah, right. But they're just telling people go out and prospect, and it becomes
not the same.
No, it's not. It's not at all. And really where you got to, where you are, I don't have to prospect anymore is what you said. I don't have to this is great. I don't have to that's where we need to be coaching people to be, because it takes a little longer to get there, but that's where you ultimately want to be.
Yeah. Everyone wants referrals, right? Like that's always the conversation. Well, you got to tell every single person that you want a referral. You got to tell every single person that they need to talk about you. But what's interesting about that, and I've learned this just from, especially being in the financial space for so long, no one's actually saying, well, here's what to say. Well, here's how that sounds. Yeah. And no one really likes asking for things in reality. Because I was asked to do that when I was in car sales too. Well, you got to ask for referrals. And it's so weird. Like, oh, here's a piece of paper, write their name and number. I can call them. Like, no one likes that. That is the used car sale approach to business. But there's a better way. There's a better way to do that where it doesn't feel like that. And people go out of their way to want to make those introductions. But it also goes back to, well, what are you saying?
Right.
What are you asking for? And is it clear? Is your message clear? Most of the time, it's not. People, have their elevator pitches, and I'll ask somebody else. I did an experiment. I had it was a room full of people. It was an event that I did, and I had everybody do their pitch. And then I had people go back and try and do a pitch for someone else. We had just done this. Like, we just run around the room. There's 15 people, and people struggled to go through. And I said, No, now I want you to learn something from this. If you are struggling and you just heard that person say that 5 minutes ago,
Right.
what makes you think they're going to refer you or you're going to refer them or even introduce them to another person? You
Yep.
don't even know what they do. I'm like, you're not clear in your messaging. How somebody hears those things is not the same, which means they don't interpret it, internalize it. There's no emotional tie, and it's in one ear and out the other, and that's it.
Yeah, no, that's a great exercise. And it's certainly a big problem. And I think it underscores a couple things. One, people are doing a poor job of messaging, but it also underscores that, are you really listening?
True.
And if you're not listening, then what do you expect? Okay, I'm going to give my little pitch here. Everybody listen. Okay, thank you. Now I'm just going to zone out and let everyone else talk.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're not going to help them, then they're not going to help you. And
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
The whole misinformation. I guess if we could dissect it, the whole misinformation of like the financial industry, right? You've got these key people who are very successful, and they're just selling. Just go out there and network. Just go network, right? And you have to wonder, how did they get to where they got? Well, they probably got to where they're probably successful now because they are doing the networking. They do have the accountants, they do have the attorneys, they have the clients that are sending them business. But how they got there was they were willing to endure being annoying long enough to get themselves to a point, right? Because there were people who quit all along the way and said, well, networking doesn't work. I don't want to be a financial advisor. I'll go work for the state or whatever it might be. I don't know, it boggles my mind that people who just continue to behave the way they do, we know so much about what doesn't work.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, that's the definition of insanity, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of it was one of the reasons why I left the firm I was working at, because I'm like, you're hiring people who are of a very different generation. And their, process, their relationship building techniques, while there's a lot of similarities, there's a lot of differences too. And you can't expect them to network, communicate, and build a business the way that you did it 30 years ago. It just doesn't work that way. And, giving word tracks to, a 24-year-old that is from an advisor that's been doing this for a long time, they're just not going to work for them. And then, you mentioned at the beginning that everyone has the capacity to network if it's in a personal setting. But as soon as you turn that professional switch on, people lose their minds. They have no idea how to communicate outside of what they do for a living. And here's my card. And when are you going to work with me? Right. They don't realize that person is not just a client opportunity. They are an opportunity in general. You don't know how that person's going to play a role. And they could be a conduit. But if that conduit has a mixed signal or message from you, it's not going to go anywhere. They're never going to, introduce you to an event, another person, other potential conduits, other potential clients. And, that I always correlate, successful networking and being intentional to successful branding. You need to have an understanding of your brand, what exactly it is that you do, you offer, how you help people, who are the people that you help, what are the problems that you're solving for, how are you solving those problems, and how can you articulate that in as few words as possible so that people can continue to share your message. Word of mouth is not going away.
Yeah.
But how are you leveraging it outside of social media and any marketing or advertising that you're doing? Because that is not going to be the end all be all.
Yeah.
People are still going to talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, word of mouth is not going away. It's actually becoming more relevant because, you were talking earlier about, hey, what you did 30 years ago, people picked up the phone. You could, they had a home phone, didn't have caller ID. Phone didn't ring that much because there weren't robocalls. It took work.
Right.
And now it's, I never pick up the phone.
Right.
I've watched it ring 3 times that we've been talking, and scam alert, scam alert, scam alert.
Oh, yeah, it's the worst.
I know. Yeah, well, they are the worst, and sometimes it'll come up, unrecognized number, okay, and it's legit. I don't know. So but yeah, word of mouth is really everything. In trying to build a business, trying to really build anything, build a career, having people know what you're about. What are some other challenges you see out there that people are running into? I mean, messaging is huge. I think that's a big thing. I think people are too pushy. I assume you see that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The scarcity mindset is pretty prevalent.
Yeah. Well, I think people think that, well, it doesn't apply to me. Hey, be patient. Yeah, but okay, I'll be patient. And they'll twiddle their thumbs for 10 seconds. Okay, I was patient. Now I'm gonna ask for a referral. No. But eventually, well, people either get it or they don't, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think I actually just posted today. There's 2 different types of networkers. There's the just closing sales, and there's the community builder. There is an in between, because there's some people that are straddling both sides, but in order to be successful, you need to pick a side. You can be successful just, closing sales, but that feeling, and I remember this being in the car business, every month was you start over. I hate it. It was the worst. You start over every month because you don't have a constant funnel coming in. And when you build a business in the way that I think it should be done, your network recognizes that and supports that. And, they know what it is that you do. They know what you sell for. And it could be something as simple as you sell cars, right? Not everybody has a car every year.
Yeah.
It might be every couple of years, it might be every 5 years, 8 years, whatever. But if you have a go-to person that is going to take you through the process and make it a lot easier, well, I want to work with Christine because she's not like all the rest of them. I'm not going to have to worry about where my clients are coming from. And same thing in any industry. No one wants to worry about that, but people still worry about that, and they only think about that one thing.
Yeah.
So the other thing I see too is, I think one of my favorites is, I don't need to network anymore because I'm busy. I have a lot of clients right now. And it's very hard to respond to that, because I'm like, well, I'm so happy for you. I'm glad that business is booming, but is business going to boom 3 months from now?
Yeah.
6 months from now? It's not just a short-term game. Networking is a vehicle that needs to be constantly maintained, similar to going to the gym or eating healthy. You can't just do it once and it be done. You have to continually put yourself in front of people, continuing to fine-tune those relationships that you've already established. They might be great relationships that you have to continue. You can't just say, well, I already know Joe Smith and he'll do whatever I want in the future. Well, if you never talk to him again, why would he?
Right.
There's no, the effort, time, and communication is extremely important with those relationships. And they need to be maintained because people change jobs. People fall off the face of the earth all the time.
Yeah.
And, having that constant cycle and knowing who your staples are and who your kind of ins and outs are extremely important. And trying to explain that to somebody, even if they've been in business or, had a career for a significant amount of time, they go through these spurts where they're network, and then they'll stop because their funnel is full and they're really busy finally. And then once their funnel is done, they're like, oh my God, they're frantic. And they're now getting in front of people. And like, had you done that consistently the whole time and not sacrificed networking, maybe you dialed back a little bit, but you didn't stop completely. You can never stop completely if you expect people to remember you. Even if you're a memorable person, you talk to one person and 3 years later, they still remember you. How often does that happen? It doesn't. It doesn't happen that often. And just like McDonald's, which by the way, has been around for however, they still get in front of people.
Yeah.
Why is that? Well, because they have other companies that might scoop you up if they don't continue putting that in your face.
Yeah, I find I've got enough work argument is I so wanted to jump in, because what I'll tell those people, Christine, is I'll say, oh, I'm happy for you, like you say, because I have somebody who needs what you do. I don't want to burden you with one more opportunity, and most of the time, well, I'll take more,
Yeah.
Oh no, you're obviously too busy to service my client. So if you're too busy, you're too busy.
Right.
But I'm not going to have my client be, low, not get the service they deserve. So I don't know. I find it to be BS.
Priorities. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, 100%. I feel like it's not just one thing. It's a bunch of things. There's a time mismanagement. There's a priorities mismanagement. I think there's an energy mismanagement. Like there's all these things that no one is aware enough of, but they see this thing coming in. Like I get the, transition of priorities. If you have a ton of clients coming in, you only have so much time, right? But you still got to maintain your face at the end of the day, or people aren't going to remember it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Let's shift gears. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about your business. I want you to talk a little bit about the 4 to 4s and the things you're doing and how people can help you, how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah. So I'm big on LinkedIn, so people can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I do have connection parameters, so please read those.
Okay.
I don't expect people to just send me a connection request. I like messages and I like people to, regularly communicate with me. The 4 to 4s are separate from Riplefx. It was just something that I kind of randomly started doing because I was realizing how much time I was spending in meetings every week. For the last, 5 years, probably 4 years, I've probably had 20 to 25 meetings a week on top of any recurrent clients or anything like that. And I'm like, that's a lot. It's a lot of like time, effort, hours, right? So, and a lot of them are new, they're new people, or they're people I'm like, sitting back with and checking in with. And with the concept of Riplefx, with our recon groups, you meet 10 people, everyone's industry exclusive. We meet weekly for an hour. But I see those people all the time. So I'm like, it's not quite the same thing. So 4 to 4 allows for 4 people to be on a call for an hour. And you get immediate value because you get to meet people you probably didn't meet before. And you get to learn things about them that I know for a fact you would never learn, because those are questions you would not ask.
Right.
So I have specific questions that I ask during that session. It usually goes through pretty quick, and then we kind of, we'll continue just having a conversation after. Usually people's cool facts always leads to a cool conversation.
Sure.
Depending on, what it is. And that's always really fascinating to me, because that is how you resonate with somebody. You find something really neat about them. You never would have known that otherwise. People are moving too fast. So the 4 to 4 allows us to have a very time efficient meeting, but we're actually moving slower. And I put that very loosely because we get a lot done in an hour, but I know more about that person after that hour than I would have if I just sat with them and did my normal networking meeting. So those are questions that I incorporate all the time now, because I'm like, I want to know what kind of person you are.
Sure.
What makes you tick? Are you similar to me? Are you similar to somebody else I know? And that's also helpful from a connection request opportunity, when I'm like, oh, this person would be really good for you because of X, Y, and Z, or you share that, or whatever. And then Riplefx, I think that was your other question. So we are a strategic and intentional networking community building organization. So we run strategic networking groups, we have coaching, and we run events. So people can participate in our community, and the types of people that work really well in our community. We are B2C and B2B, but B2C works really well in this type of model. It is not a leads-based model, so you're not coming in necessarily to get leads. You're coming in to build relationships, to have people prospect for you. So we use the advocation-based model to help people build their business. The other personality traits that I really look for are people who are very community focused. I would say they're very articulate. They also don't like leaving disappointment behind. So they're very into helping others be successful, but they've often sacrificed themselves. So we like helping to transform those people into being very intentional networkers, but being in a community that supports them and provides a space for them to be themselves, but find the business that they're looking for.
Okay. Best way to get a hold of you through LinkedIn?
Best way to get a hold of me is LinkedIn. You can email me as well. That's Christine@riplefx.us.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you being on the program.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.